This video is going to go over the bones of the upper limb, starting with the bones of the shoulder. So the first bone of the shoulder is going to be this guy right here. This is your collarbone or your clavicle. It's an S-shaped bone. And it's going to have a single little lump right here. That's going to be called the conoid tubercle. Now this is going to be on the anterior side of the shoulder, and the scapula, this bone right here, that's going to be on the posterior side of the shoulder, and what we usually think of as our shoulder blade. So on this guy, the body is going to be this big triangular piece of the scapula. The spine is this ridge right here leading into this projection known as the acromion process. And you can feel this ridge on yourself. If you feel the back of your shoulder, you'll feel that ridge of bone right there. And then if we turn over to the lateral portion, we'll see this kind of teardrop shaped surface, divot, if you will. That's the glenoid fossa. That's going to be where the arm bone, the humerus, is going to come and attach. So it's going to come sit right there, allowing for that ball and socket movement of your shoulder joint. So scapula and clavicle, and they're going to connect kind of like that over the top of your shoulder, and then the humerus is going to connect underneath here. So that moves us down our arm to our humerus. This is the humerus here. So this is the anterior view of the humerus, and this is the posterior. Posterior is the one that has the big divot. So features on the humerus, first off we've got the head, which is going to be the ball for the ball and socket joint. Then the tubercles, these are those two lumps that are opposite the head. So head's that big ball, and then we've got the greater tubercle being the large bump, and the lesser tubercle being the small bump. As we move down the diaphysis, right kind of in the middle here, you'll feel a roughened region. That roughened region, that's called the deltoid tuberosity, and that's going to be where your deltoid muscle attaches to your humerus. Moving down to the distal end of the humerus, we've got a couple features here. We've got this kind of spool-shaped feature that's called the trochlea, and that's going to be where one of your lower arm bones are going to connect. And then if we look at the anterior surface, we've got this big lump next to the trochlea. So here's again our trochlea, and that's going to be the capitulum. That's where your other lower arm bone connect. So trochlea and capitulum. Then on the side opposite the capitulum, we've got this big lump sticking out. That's going to be your medial epicondyle. And you can feel that on your arm if you feel, let's see if I can put my arm in here, right on the inside of your elbow. So this angle right here, you're going to feel that medial epicondyle right in there. Okay, so that's that medial epicondyle. So capitulum, trochlea, medial epicondyle. And then on that posterior view, remember we have that big divot. That big divot is going to be the olecranon fossa. And that's going to be important when we move to our next bone, which is going to be the ulna, and I'll bring that over right now. So the ulna is the one that has the hook on the end of it, and that hook is called the olecranon process. So you can see here we're hooked into that trochlea right on top of it, and then that olecranon process of the ulna fits into the olecranon fossa of the humerus. So it's going to fit right there and give us that hinge joint of our elbow. So that's the olecranon process. Now the other side of that is going to be the coronoid process. So olecranon is the top and coronoid is the bottom of that little hook. And that hook itself is called the semilunar notch. So half moon notch. To me it always looks like a wrench. So the bone of the lower arm that looks like a wrench, that wrench portion, that's the semilunar notch. Then we have the olecranon process and the coronoid process. And if we flip over to the medial side here, you'll see that we've got this little divot. Okay, so we've got that semilunar notch, and then we've got this divot. That divot is called the radial notch, and it's called that because the radius is going to sit right there. And in terms of connecting to that humerus, if we go back, remember the semilunar notch is going to hook onto the trochlea, and then the head of the radius, that circle, that's going to attach to the capitula. So that gives us the joint for our elbow completely. So we've got our head, and then just below the head we've got this big lump. Let me move these off to the side. We've got this big lump on the radius, and that's going to be the radial tuberosity. And again, that's going to be a muscle attachment point. So upper arm, humerus. Lower arm, we've got our radius and our ulna. Okay, and in terms of how they sit in the hand, the radius is going to be thumb side, and the ulna is going to be pinky side, in terms of in your arm itself. Then as we move on, we'll move down to the hand. And the bones of the hand, we've got 3 different types of bones here. These kind of pebble-shaped bones of the wrist, those are called the carpals, and there's 8 of them total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and if I flip over, there's number 8. So those are the bones of your wrist, the carpals. The metacarpals are the bones that go across your hand. There's 1 for each finger, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the phalanges are the finger bones. There's 2 of them on the thumb and 3 for each of your fingers. So if I set this directly on my hand here, you can see kind of how that would fit in the wrist and to the fingers. Obviously, this individual has a bigger hand than I do. So phalanges, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. So 14 phalanges per hand, 5 metacarpals, and 8 carpals per hand. So to recap, the upper arm consists of the scapula and the clavicle for the shoulder. Then we have the humerus and the radius and the ulna for the upper part of the arm. And then of course our hand is our lowest part or most distal portion of the upper arm.